Um, Oz?
Ah,
I'm not sure if I'm
Aus.
pronounced Aus. Oh, I'm so
Yeah,
sorry.
no, that's correct. No, it's fine. I guess I'll start.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Sadie, for moving me around. Okay. Yeah, so my portfolio is like really, really simple because I did not have like a graphic vision for it. And like, my strongest suit is not with graphics. And so it's just like my name, empty page, and that's it. And I try to divide my work into research, competitions, and academics, and try to frame it around my interest in computation. And I also did a physics background. I did a physics and architecture major at Daniels. So I also try to frame my work around these interests of mine. So I would write about them in the personal statement, but I would also try to show them in my portfolio. And so this portfolio is mostly for grad school, and this is the one I applied with for MIT, which it changed a lot since then, but I thought this is more helpful to show you. So maybe before I start, I'll just speak about. So I talked with my prof, Jeannie, who you guys might know, and she recommended this book called Grid Systems by a guy named Mueller. I'm scrolling through it. I don't know if Dan mentioned it. Just a second. And basically it just like tells you how to divide the page into a grid, and what's the best margins between squares, how many words do you have to include in one line. And so like he tells you like 5 to 7 words per line is the optimal, so that people can easily read through your text. And then he talks about like font sizes and so on. So if you want to just create a quick portfolio, it's really helpful. And so like what I did was I created this like template with like my own grid system based on his interpretation. And so I'll just divide it into small squares, and these small squares make larger squares. And this would just like make my life easier with organizing pictures and text, right? So like I could like easily just put my text here. I could easily put my images within like one square. And if I have like a larger image, I can just fit it within larger squares. And what's nice about it is that when you go from one image to the other, everything is like aligned, and everything like speaks to something. So like these are like snippets, and you'll know it because you'll see it throughout the portfolio. So it's really easy to read, and the easier it is to read, the better impression you'll have on whoever's reviewing it, or the easier it will be for them to understand it. So yeah, the research part I wanted to include because it was in computation with my prof, and I talk a lot about computation, but also about like math, for example. And I wanted to show like, those are sinusoidal waves, and you can make them like smooth if you join them together at the edge because like the curvature is 0. And also talk about the acoustic properties which relate to like my physics background, for example. But also to include digital fabrication. And then competitions were important to include in the first page for me because I was applying to MIT and they really focus on collaboration. But also because like, if you actually build something, it's nice to include it. So those were like just some local competitions that we actually got to build. And it's really important to like credit people, because if you're showing collaboration, you have to show like who did what, even if like, that image is great and you didn't do it, it's fine to include it and just credit that person to show like, good teamwork. And then for academics, you saw like I had a lot of pages, and most of them were just one pagers, just to show like different styles. Sorry, is anyone asking a question? Okay, never mind. I thought I saw something in the chat. Please feel free to interrupt me whenever you have a question. Yeah, so this one pager, for example, showed just like my interest in Grasshopper. This one showed, my skills in hand drawing. This one in making models. This one in digital fabrication. And so they're just like quick pages for the reviewer to skim through. They don't have to like read about it. And I would say like, these pages do not really need that much wording. So this is too much already. And the less wording you can have, the better. So like make your images speak more. And then, the last two projects are the ones I focused on the most. But again, it's too much writing. I don't think anyone's going to read this now that I look at it. But it's just me showing, my interest in physics somehow, maybe superficially, but like just talking about reflection and like refraction through like an architectural lens of like, intersection of glass or the shadow of glass and so on. And just showing how like infinite images could appear and talking about glass in general, and then relating, these ideas to create a kind of a house for two people. And then my final project for the student housing project was a lot of computation. So like I did this big matrix, which is really hard to read or like understand. So if I would go back to it, I would say like, okay, maybe zoom in on one image and like show it, because this is just like not readable at all and maybe unnecessary to include. But what I tried to do with this project is I post-rationalize it and wrote about it in my personal statement to explain it. But at the same time, I also tried to relate it to one of the research of the profs at MIT, which is like bullshit. Like I didn't actually base it on her research, but it happened to relate to it. And her research idea was like, for example, about shape grammar. And I was just talking about how this goes from simplicity to complexity. And I was like, oh, this relates to shape grammar. And, you can just have these simple modules, stack them together, and you create this complex architectural language. And just like, I was just lucky that it related to it. So like, if you can relate your work to the people who work at that university you're applying to, it's even better, because then they'll be like, oh, this person can like, do a research position here and help us and so on. And yeah, I just like was conscious to include at least like one detailed section, one detailed plan, and like nice images of models. And another thing is that, these images, especially like, images of models, not this one, sorry. Like these, for example, I would put all the images of my portfolio in Lightroom and try to match the colors of these images. So throughout my portfolio, like the color is like kind of cold and less warm. And that just like also makes it, a lot easier to read. So for example, my second year project, this one was really, really warm. It was like orange almost. So I just had to like recolor the images on Lightroom to make it like colder, which is really quick. It's unlike photoshopping. But also, you might need to Photoshop some of the images. Like this one had like a background and it was like too much. And another thing is that whenever you have like line work, try to print it, because that will reduce the size of the page. But if you have like a JPEG image in that page, try to reduce the quality of it through InDesign. And so I would actually like print every single page and see like if it's an image or a PDF, like a line work. And if it's line work, I would print it. If it's a JPEG, I would try to reduce the image, because in the beginning, mine was like 70 megabytes because I had so many images and projects, but then I was able to reduce it to 20 megabytes. And yeah, that's it. Does anyone have any questions? And yeah, thank you, Kristen, for mentioning the grid systems video. Are people applying to grad school or are you guys doing this for a jobs portfolio?
I think there are some people applying to grad school and some people who are like looking to do their stream portfolios as well.
Okay. So in their second year or first year? I forget.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, those are completely different applications,
Yeah.
but I guess organization is helpful in both applications.
I think your grid systems resource is very helpful as well.
And I would say like try to review your portfolio with many people as well. Like I reviewed my portfolio with Peter Seeley, with Jeannie, and with a lot of my friends. So the more people see it and the more criticism you get, the more you understand how others see your portfolio without you looking at it, which is, I guess, trivial, but if you don't push yourself to do it, you won't be able to understand how people look at it. And this is too many pages, too many projects. I would only include like 5 projects if I'm applying to a job. I just put so many because I was stressed. I didn't know how to choose. But if I was going to redo it, I would just have like 7 projects max.
Yeah, you're like critiquing your own portfolio right now.
Yeah, because this is the one I applied with 2 years ago, so I changed it a lot.
All right, I think we have about 2 to 3 more minutes. Does anyone have any specific questions for us? Otherwise, I'm kind of curious what grad school is like in MIT. I've been asking some other people this question as well, but yeah.
It's very different from Daniel's, but it's like what's nice about it is that there are so many different faculties that you can it's so easy to access other faculties. So I'm doing like courses in computer science right now, but also the courses in like the media lab, which is like this famous faculty, and they have like these crazy collaborations with architecture students, and they create like robots and machines and like I don't know, living architecture. So like they play with like the molecular level of like materials and just try to create this thing that shrinks on its own and just lives. So like it's a lot of like abstraction and experimentation. It's actually also too theoretical. It's not computation. I was expecting a lot of computation, but it's not computational at all. It's very theoretical. And the way they teach there is also interesting. So we're only like 30 students at MIT. And so like our history class in the first year was just like a discussion class. Like our prof would put us around the round table and we would just like have to like discuss with each other and argue. So it's interesting. It's different. Like compared to Daniel's, which is like a lot of students, but Daniel's is also nice because like you just get to see so many people work. Yeah.
And that's very interesting. Do you feel like you're fulfilling your interest in physics as well, like you mentioned, and combining that with your architecture stuff?
I don't know if I did it yet. Like the first 1.5 years of any MArch program is like a core kind of program. So you're repeating a lot of what you did. But now, after finishing 1.5 years, I am getting to see like, more stuff. So like our studio right now is with a professor who does research on carbon materials and just explain, like we go into the physics of the carbon and how to like build with carbon and so on. And I guess Asil is here, so my time is up.
Yes, thank you again.
Thank you.
So you're going to room 4.
Yeah.